Hey, it's Derek Jones. Thanks for joining me. Another episode of Rare Paintball Guns, where we talk about paintball guns that are rare or not so rare from paintball's past. No channel would be complete without talking about the infamous Sheridan PGP. Now, the PGP started life as another pistol based on the Benjamin Sheridan PG. And it actually didn't have a pump. It had a lever that you would pull on the side. And I believe the tube, at least on the early ones, was on the side. And they were popular for what they were. Paintball was still in its infancy, but they developed the marker further. In fact, Tim McMurray, who was kind of famous for building the Annihilator line and that stuff, he is the one who actually came up with the idea for the pump. And he was a consultant for Sheridan. They ended up shafting him. And out of desperation, he came up with a pump kit, and pretty soon PMI actually included it on the guns, and the PG became the PGP. And I could spend an hour just talking about the history of the PGP with Sheridan. This is a third generation PGP, which is interesting how many generations of this marker there actually are. I'm aware of at least 5. There is not including the PG. There's the earlier ones had like a knurled pump, and then after this generation, it actually had a Delrin pump, and so I mean, it could go on and on and on. And I'll probably do more videos about PGP over time. This one was actually found in a barn after it sat in a bag for like 10 years. So we're going to try to take it apart here in a minute and see if we can, because it's frozen solid. I don't know if I can actually get it apart. I think the O-rings are swollen to a point that I might have to heat the gun up to get it apart. But this gun, when it came out, was a game changer, especially when the pump was added to it. The Sheridan line of guns that followed the PGP, the PMI-1 and some of the other pump guns were really the predominant marker of their time, and tournament teams used them, and you still see them on the field today. In fact, I love taking my PMI-1 out and putting it on the field and shooting people, and they're looking at you like, what the hell is that? So the interesting concept about the PGP is you have about a 6-inch barrel, you have a 10-round tube over the top, and it feeds off of 12 grams in the front. It's a very compact package, and even after it kind of the sport moved on, people would still carry these basically as sidearms. This one, like I said, this one sat for a decade, and it has in water, mind you, so it may or may not be salvageable. I'll take it apart. But what was cool about this is people would modify the heck out of them, and there was a lot of accessories. There was quick change CO2 front lugs. They would build front post or feed adapters so that they could quick change or direct feed a 10-round tube. There was a velocity adjuster kit that came out. There was a couple aftermarket bolts, and there was aftermarket grip frames. And these things were a lot of fun. In fact, to show you something interesting, which we'll have a separate video later, I actually found this while I was digging through my boxes. This is a Palmerized PGP, and I believe it's still technically a stroker, but it uses the PGP frame, and then it uses the Palmer's pneumatic, the ram, the regulator, and it actually has a spring-loaded. So this technology actually existed a long time after the marker kind of fizzled out as far as popularity. People were still modifying PGPs, and I think people are still doing it today. In fact, in the last few years, I saw several PGP builds on M. Carter Brown. So, interesting marker, a lot of fun, and you still find them. I've seen them as low as $100 on Craigslist, in good shape. Some of the beat ones less than that. It just depends on what you're looking for. Most of what I find now are the 4th and 5th generation PGPs, which are the Delron and have the plastic pump. And the newer valve system. The older ones actually had a lead valve, and I'm not familiar. I never actually repaired those. I always had to send those off to Dale Price. Sugar Stump, and I got to give a shout out to Sugar Stump and Daniel Backey on YouTube, Backey Paintball and Sugar Stump on YouTube. Guys are just an infinite wealth of knowledge and provide me with all kinds of resources that my feeble mind can't remember anymore. So anyway, let's see if we can get this beast at least somewhat apart and maybe back into working condition or near it. I'll pull it up and we'll take it apart. I used to love playing indoor games with these, indoor paintball with a PGP, because they were so small. You could crawl around with them, and they were pretty wieldy. Somebody has duct taped these grip frames. These were quite fragile, and I'm assuming that's probably what's happened here. These are probably broken, and I have another set somewhere. Yeah, that's exactly what's happened. This gun might be a challenge to get back even to near functioning ability. It's been sitting for a long time.
He said the bag was wet and there was mouse poop. In fact, if this is so old...
It's so old, somebody has modified it and drilled a hole in the grip frame to get the screws out. Let's take those out. And there is a Sheridan grip frame. Pretty standard. It's got a sear and then it catches on the hammer. Take that out. There's the spring. And there's the hammer. The hammer is pretty dirty. Okay. Clean that off. Get that all cleaned out. And there you can see the valve in there. And this looks like it has... I'm actually not going to pull the valve out of this because I am not a Sheridan superstar like Dale Price or some of the other guys, and I don't want to ruin it. I rarely had to change valves in PGPs. They work, and they work well. But as you can see, I can't budge the pump. And that leads me to believe that the O-rings on the bolt are swollen, which was pretty common for these when they would sit for a great deal of time. So let's see if we can maybe hammer that out.
When in doubt, the old wood dowel trick is my favorite.
There's a little steel sear in there, and it's gouged into, or it's really stiff, and I'm gonna have to just put a little bit of penetrating oil on there, put some heat on it, and then I'll be able to get it working. However, that said, I wish I had a 12 gram. This is a pretty simple marker. The bolt just has an O-ring on the face, and I'm sure that's what was swollen. And okay. All right, there we go. That's in there now.
It took a minute. I really wish I had
Alright, so there was a quick strip, as best I could do with what I have. I didn't want to get too crazy with it because I don't have any replacement parts for this. And that hammer, that steel lug, I would have to machine one, which I'm not I'm not against, but I'd like to order some parts before I really get in there and try and tear that apart. It pumps now. And let's see if I can find a 12 gram. Well, I was hoping I could find a 12 gram and test it out, but I didn't, so I'll have to buy a box of 12 grams and give it a shot later. I do have some other grips in a box somewhere. I have no idea where those are. So, but I did get it pumping. It was just stuck in there, and I'm sure it's just from calcium buildup in the water. Pretty interesting marker, a lot of fun. In fact, some of the funnest games I've ever played were when 10 of us had PGPs and nothing else. As soon as somebody brought a semi in or something with a direct feed, that totally changes the dynamic. But as far as pistol play goes, these are fantastic. So if you see one, you might want to grab one and pick it up. They're fun. There's quite a few guys that still service them. I'm not connected with that crowd anymore, but I'm sure with a little research you could find several of them off of M. Carter Brown or the M. Carter Brown Facebook group that would be able to help you get a broken one up and running. Yeah, really cool piece of equipment. I love the old school sights on these, and I'm having total flashbacks of playing at Showdown in Harriman, Utah with this, which was Dale Price's field. And I used to run around in the bushes with one of these because that's all I could afford. So everybody else had the pumps with the 40 round ammo box, and my dad was like, "Hell no, you can play with a pump." So and I did, and I had no problems. Fun guns, really interesting marker, and I will have more of these. There'll be a whole bunch of Sheridan videos, and unfortunately, I am not the strongest Sheridan repair guy. I was fond of them, but at the time I was a young kid, and I spent most of my repair work on the guns just after this generation. So I usually passed these right on to Dale, and Dale would do all the work with them, and the good news is they rarely needed work. It's pretty rare to have a valve go out on one of these, at least in my experience. But when they do, it's a bugger. It's an absolute bugger. There's a tool that you need, and some of them have lead seals, and there's all kinds of problems. So, PGP, if you like the video, please give us a like. And if you like the content we're doing, please give us a like and maybe subscribe. And we will see you next time.